All right, we're about to dive into an ancient story that, well, it's less of a story and more of a map, a psychological guide, actually, hidden inside this strange and wonderful riddle that shows us how to, excavate our own minds. So it all starts with a monk. His name is Kumara Kassapa. One night, a deity appears and hits him with this super cryptic puzzle. There's an anthill. At night it smolders, and during the day, it just bursts into flames. A wise teacher tells a student to grab a sword and start digging. The big question is, what's he going to find inside? Now, of course, this isn't about literal digging in the dirt. The monk, totally stumped, takes this puzzle to the Buddha. And the Buddha reveals that the entire riddle, it's a metaphor. To solve it, we have to dig into the meaning of the ancient Pali words themselves, getting past their surface definitions to find the real psychological truths buried deep inside. And that right there is our method for this whole explainer. To really get this story, we've got to look at its language through two totally different lenses. It's the only way to see all the layers of meaning hidden just beneath the surface. So, on one side, you have the modern, straightforward translation, the dictionary definition. But on the other, we're going to use what ancient linguists called nirudi. It's this amazing insight into a word's very roots. And that gives us a second translation, a psychological one, that reveals what the word actually feels like. This is our shovel. This is how we're going to... Let's start the excavation, shall we? So the student in the story starts digging, and the first things he finds? They're not treasures. Nope, they're obstacles. And as we're about to see, they're obstacles that might feel pretty familiar to all of us. First things first, what's the anthill itself? The Buddha explains that the Vammiko, the anthill, is a symbol for this very body, our physical selves. It's the ground we have to dig into. It's the place that smokes with all our thoughts and plans by night and blazes with action by day. Okay, so the student digs, and the very first thing he finds is a lengi. The standard translation is super simple. It's a bolts or a bar, the kind you'd use to lock a door. But that root meaning, it suggests something way more fundamental, a barrier that completely blocks the path forward. So what is this fundamental barrier? The Buddha says it's avidya, ignorance. It's the primary lock on the door of our own understanding. It's the first and biggest obstacle we have to pull out before we can even hope to dig any deeper. Okay, now this next one is really interesting because the imagery is just so vivid. The student digs deeper and finds an udhumayaka. Literally, this could mean a toad or even a pufferfish. But look at that root meaning translation. It's the state of being puffed up, totally swollen with this kind of internal resentful heat. You can almost feel that, can't you? And this perfectly illustrates the next big obstacle, anger and resentment. It's that feeling of being inflated with frustration, just ready to burst. That image of a puffed up creature, it is a perfect visual metaphor for that internal pressure we all feel when we're really angry. Let's keep going. The next discovery builds on this. The student finds a dvivida patham. The literal translation is clean, simple, a fork in the road. But the psychological meaning is hiding right there in the roots of the word, a two-way track, a path that literally splits the mind. And this, the Buddha explains, is doubt. It's that mental state of being totally paralyzed at a crossroads. Pulled in two different directions at the same time. Should I do this or should I do that? That mental splitting is the fork in the road, and it just stops us dead in our tracks. Okay, so we've pulled out ignorance, anger, and doubt. But as our student digs even further, the objects he finds get a lot more complex. They start to represent entire structures of our experience. Next, he finds a gangavaram, which is a strainer or a filter. This represents what's known as the 5 hindrances. Basically, all the mental static that clouds our perception. Think about sensual desire pulling your focus one way, or ill will coloring your judgments. Then add in laziness that stops you from even starting something, restlessness that keeps you from finishing, and that paralyzing doubt we just talked about. All together, they act like a dirty sieve, making it impossible to see things clearly. After that, he finds a kumo, a tortoise. Now, what does a tortoise do? It retreats into its shell for safety, right? Well, that shell represents the 5 components of our identity that we cling to for dear life. It's our physical body, our constantly changing feelings, our perceptions, all that mental chatter, and even consciousness itself. We bundle these 5 things together, call it me, and mistake this protective shell for who we really are. And then the imagery gets even more intense. He finds an asasuna, a butcher's block, and a mumsa a piece of flesh. Together, these two symbolize the dangerous trap of sensual pleasure. We crave the flesh, the pleasure, But in doing that, we put ourselves on the chopping block, where we're inevitably cut by disappointment and loss. So the student has dug and dug. He's removed ignorance, anger, doubt, the hindrances, this clinging to identity, and the craving for pleasure. He's cleared away all the major obstacles. What could possibly be left? Well, the final discovery changes absolutely everything. At the very, very bottom of the anthill, he finds a naga, a great cobra. Now, just think about this for a second. Everything else was an inert object to be thrown away, a bolt, a toad, a strainer. But this is a powerful living creature. What are you supposed to do with a giant cobra you find at the bottom of your own mind? And this is where we get the most crucial point of the whole story. The teacher gives this shocking instruction. He doesn't say, get rid of the cobra or kill the cobra. He says, let the naga be. Do not harm it. Pay homage to it. The entire approach flips from removal to reverence. Because the naga, the great cobra, is the symbol for the goal itself. It represents the fully enlightened being, someone who has extinguished all of those mental poisons. The treasure at the bottom wasn't some object to acquire. It was a state of being to realize, a potential that was there all along, just buried under everything else. So, you see, this ancient parable isn't just some curious old story. It's actually a direct set of instructions. It's an invitation for you. The anthill is your own body and mind. That sword the teacher tells you to pick up, that's wisdom. And the act of digging, well, that's your own diligent effort to actually look inside and see what's there. The story gives you the map, but you're the one who has to do the digging. So the real question this ancient map leaves us with is this. If you were to start digging today, right now, what do you think you'd find first? A bolt of ignorance? That puffed up toad of anger? A fork in the road of doubt? And maybe more importantly, what powerful, brilliant potential, what great serpent is lying in wait for you at the very bottom of it all?